Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens confuse customers who are just trying to get through the day as employees. And in this episode, guys, boy oh boy, you're gonna have to hold onto your heads because it might fall off from shaking so much. I hope you enjoy the lineup, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss these wild stories. So to preface the story, let me point out that this was the first time ever that I was confronted with the idea that people might be so dense as to get really angry at someone for not working there. So about a year ago, I was at a tech store. Picture me dressed in thick winter clothing, as opposed to the sales team, who all wear white button short sleeve shirts with the company logo on it. That's when a man comes up to me and he demands help picking a new camera. That's when I politely inform him that I don't work here, that I'm just another customer, but I can go fetch one of the employees to help him, because I actually had a few friends working there. At that, the guy gets angry at me saying, "Typical, nobody knows anything, it's not my department, it's somebody else's problem, it's always excuses from you people, everyone's useless nowadays." I was surprised by his sudden tantrum, and I was puzzled that he actually didn't believe me. I start laughing at the absurdity of the situation, and try to explain again that I don't work here. I mean, look at my clothes. You know, it's a big misunderstanding. We can all sort this out, right? The guy completely ignores it. He keeps going on, shouting and swearing at me that this was an outrage, that he's so sick of the lack of customer service, and that he'll report me and how I will regret this. I can't keep my composure at this point, and I start laughing in earnest now. This is just too crazy. The guy then storms out of the shop, shouting, threatening the store with bad reviews online, and saying how he'll report this to my superiors. A few days later, one of my friends who works there gives me a call, saying that they actually did get an official complaint from the guy, demanding I get fired to see justice done. If I were in OP's shoes, I would have just screamed back at the guy saying, "Don't bother calling corporate to get me fired because I quit." Guys, I'm dumbfounded. Like, how did he think that someone who's wearing a winter jacket is an employee? Like, do some people literally just choose random customers to be employees when employees aren't around? I don't get that man's deal at all. So here's some backstory. I'm an Asian female in her 40s who was adopted at birth by white people in the US. In short, I don't speak any Asian languages, but in the last decade or so, I've been trying to get in touch with my roots, and I often visit Asian supermarkets. So on this day, I was shopping at an Asian supermarket, staring at the fish and meat section of the supermarket. Now, if you've never been to an Asian supermarket, they usually have a hardcore fish and meat section. I go there to get some food and watch a show, as they butcher, steam, fillet, and get into grand discussions with the customers. I had my basket, and I was leaning against a display of big cans while watching amazing fishmongers debone a mega-sized fish, when I saw a couple of non-Asian women staring at me. I figured they wanted what I was leaning on, so I say to them, "Oh, I'm sorry, do you need these?" Woman number one says, "Do you speak English?" Now, I might add that my first words to them were in English. My mind just stalled for a few seconds, and that was enough for the second lady to start chiming in, doing that if I speak louder and slower, they'll understand me better thing. She says to her friend, "I know how to talk to them." She then turns to me and says, "Ni hao. Can you help us?" I say to her, I don't work here, but what do you need?" Woman number one says, "We want shrimp chips, while making wild gestures with her hands. I say to her, "Oh, I know where those are. It's right over in the second aisle towards the doorway." At this point, lady number 1 and 2 had apparently decided that I did not understand English, so they start talking about me in front of me. Lady 2 says, "What a bitch, she's not even gonna show us where they are," while lady number 1 says, "What can you expect from lazy employees? Didn't you see her standing there doing nothing?" At this point, my brain finished its error check and reboot cycle, and I got pissed, saying, "Excuse me? I don't even work here, and you come up and start yelling at me?" The two women looked at me like I grew another head, and lady number 1 says, "Well, how should we know? You all look like you work here," while her friend says, "You need to learn English." Now, I don't know what the look was on my face, but I start to walk towards them with murderous intent, and they turned around to book it away from me. 1 second later, it was like someone hit the play button and everything went back to how it was before. Honestly guys, how dumb and entitled were they? Like, beyond ridiculous that they were being so rude and condescending to OP, even though she was speaking like perfect English to them. And I just have to say that I hate it when people do the speak slower and louder thing. Guys, I used to work with this idiot who spoke that way to a Polish coworker, all because the guy had an accent. And it was brutally painful. The guy would be like, "Good morning. Did you have coffee and donut yet? Yum, donut." Yes, speak to a grown adult like they're 3 years old. And by the way, guys, the Polish dude wasn't fluent, but the guy could understand when you spoke at normal speed. Some people are just really, really dumb and ignorant. On this day, I met my family at a restaurant I love going to. I'm wearing black dress pants, black shoes, and a black polo shirt. I was dressed like this because I was coming from college choir, and that was the expectation. The restaurant was rather busy, and being friends with some of the staff, I chose to grab a towel and wipe down the table that we were sitting at. That's when my friend, standing on the service side of the counter, sees me, and we talk for a moment. I hand her the towel so she can toss in the bucket. I then start heading back to my family when it happened. A lady says, "Excuse me." Now at this point, I don't realize she's talking to me. I don't know her, and I was focused on what I was going to be eating and getting to see my family. The woman repeats herself saying, "Excuse me, excuse me." It's at that point, she slams her hand on the table and then walks in front of me and starts filming me with her phone. The woman says, "Hi, I was wondering why you're ignoring me." She then holds the phone in my face and she starts screaming at me saying I ignored her, was talking to coworkers instead of doing my job, and how I refused to help her. She then points at my family's table and she starts saying, "Everyone, notice the white customers that arrived after me. They've been helped by her." She then tells me to look at her table and she puts the camera on it. She angrily asked, "Did you wipe down the white family's table after they came in?" At this point, I'm having an anxiety attack, unable to speak, and I'm on the verge of tears because I'm overstimulated. I say to her, "Yes, I wiped it down, but..." She then cuts me off and says, "So you admit that you took care of that table while ignoring me because of my skin color?" I replied, "What? No, I don't..." She then cuts me off again and says, "I'll be sending this video to the owners tomorrow. You chose the wrong person to do this to." I'm just crying at this point because I'm so freaked out. I don't want to be in her video and I try to hide my face. The woman screams at me saying, "Oh, now you're trying to hide. Now that I'm making you take accountability for your actions, I want your name right now." Now I do want to note that this happened all in the span of like a minute, so I had no time to react. Luckily, my friend sees what's going on and walks over with the manager. That's when the woman goes off, pointing the phone in his face, saying how he needs to fire me for racial discrimination and how she was gonna send the video up the chain and have this whole racist restaurant shut down. The whole time asking my name and getting more upset when the manager's stumbling to respond to her. She then screams louder that she wants my name and other angry stuff. The manager's in his 30s and he's more soft-spoken. He lets her talk it out for what felt like forever, and that's when my mom comes up and says, "Hey, are you coming back? What's wrong?" That's when the woman goes off saying how entitled my mom was and that the other people, no matter what their skin color is, deserve the same customer service. My mom understands what's going on right away. With the black outfit I was wearing, I looked like I worked there. My mom looks at the upset lady in the eyes who's still filming and says, "Excuse me, this is my daughter. I understand she's dressed similarly to the employees here, but I promise you that she's not employed here. I'm sorry you've had a bad experience, but I'm gonna be taking my daughter back to our table now." That's when the woman yells at my mom saying, if she doesn't work here, why the heck is she wiping tables down and acting all friendly with the staff? This is where my friend finally cuts in and says, "She's a regular. She was wiping down her own table. It's busy, so I told her it was fine." The woman is clearly embarrassed at this point. She finally puts her camera down. My mom wishes her well, having to talk over the woman explaining how I shouldn't give the impression of working there, and how I should let staff clean the tables because that's what they're paid to do. My mom pulls me back to our table with the lady still talking. She ends up leaving after the manager and her finished talking, and I ended up getting a free dessert that night. I really hope she doesn't post that video anywhere. I've been looking online daily since this happened, and it's really kicked up my anxiety. I just have to say, the way OP's mom handled the situation was incredible, because some mama bears out there, oh boy, they'd start off swinging if some random person was filming their kid, harassing them, and screaming at them. And I also have to add that that woman was way too quick to pull out her phone and scream racism, and I'm glad she embarrassed herself. So this happened to my cousin a couple of years ago. My family is from Chile, and my cousin could be considered very light-skinned Latino. He went on a vacation/work trip to the USA with his group of friends, who are also in a traditional dance group. While in the USA, they were hired to dance in a few events. During one of these events, they needed hydration, so he went with his dance outfit on to a nearby store. Now this type of costume is very different from a Mexican charro, and this happened in May, a few days before Cinco de Mayo. So my cousin went to the supermarket, grabbed a soda bottle, and that's when he heard a loud voice. A woman screams at him saying, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" At that, my cousin turns around to see a petite white woman wearing sunglasses and clothes that were way too small for her many meals ago. My cousin's confused and he says, what? The woman goes on and says, "Don't you play dumb? Who do you think you are to wear that outfit? Do you think Mexican culture is an ornament? Where is the manager of the store?" My cousin responds, "I'm not sure what." The woman interrupts him and says, "You are not innocent either. You are an employee. And how dare you agree to do such a disrespectful thing? Give me your name right now. I'll report you and the store to corporate." Of course, at this point, the woman's screams attracted a small crowd. The Karen was giving my cousin a speech on racism, cultural appropriation, Mexico, and politics. At this point, my cousin was already angry. He needed to get back on stage soon, so he interrupts her and says in broken English, "I'm not Mexican. I'm Chilean. Mexico's not the only country in Latin America. You're ignorant. This is my culture, and if you're so racist that you can't tell the difference between Latino culture and another culture, that's not my problem. Now get out of my way. I need to pay for my drink because I don't work here. And if you want to stop being so ignorant, go to the cultural center and pay to see our culture, which is where I do work." After that, he left screaming Chilean insults at her. And one would think that the part about not working here and talking about the cultural center would put some sense into her head, but no, she decides to double down on her stupidity. My cousin pays for his drink, but he was detained by security at the door because the Karen reported that a man in a Mexican suit had attacked her, and now she demanded that they arrest him and he should be fired from his job. My cousin was running out of time to get back on stage, and security wanted to check the cameras before calling police, to which this woman refused to let security check the cameras and just wanted my cousin to be arrested. The problem is, to be able to check the cameras, they needed the manager of the store who had gone out to lunch. Fortunately, a few witnesses who saw everything told security that wasn't what happened. My cousin did not attack her at all. My cousin ended up receiving a gift card for the inconvenience, and the woman was banned from the supermarket since it wasn't the first time she made a scene. Yeah, so I just want to say that you don't need to police everything, Karen, and you especially don't need to gatekeep a culture that you're not a part of. And guys, the fact that she tried to get OP's cousin arrested by making up lies that he attacked her is terrifying, right? Like, it's actually a little scary the amount of posts I've read where when people don't get their way, they resort to trying to get that person arrested. Oh, don't look at the cameras. Just arrest him and take my word for it that he attacked me. This actually happened a week ago or so. So I live in Florida, where the Wally World shoppers range from your standard suburbanites to full-on Jerry Springer participants. Another thing is, I hate shopping in large, crowded places. It's also worth noting that I have bipolar disorder and PTSD from a not-so-happy childhood. I am getting help for it, and I'm on medication, and I'm doing much better, for the record. Anyways, story time. On this day, I was in Wally World doing some browsing for a new reading lamp. I don't know how or why this happened, but the next thing I know, some old swamp witch gripped my arm and she's dragging me down the aisle. I'm a short woman, but I'm also built like a bit of a chubby tank from my days working in a warehouse, so I plant my feet and basically shout, "What the F are you doing?" The woman scowls at me and she starts screaming how she can't find the damn chips and she needs it for her book club. She's also screaming, saying how lazy I am, how I shouldn't be doing my personal shopping while working, etc. All the usual complaints I'd heard when I actually did work in retail. I tell the woman I don't work here, and she says, "Of course you do. You're just a lazy girl. I swear all of you employees would get around on scooters if they'd let you. That's how damn lazy you are." The whole time I'm screaming, "Get off me." The woman says to me, "I wouldn't have to drag you if you damned kids would actually do your job. You're lucky I'm not asking for your manager. Now show me where the chips are." The woman is still trying to drag me and screaming bloody murder. This sets off a rage that I can only describe as eldritch levels. I grab her arm and throw her off of me into a shelf. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I do remember screaming at the top of my lungs and shaking really badly. PTSD can make you flip out when you feel like a cornered animal, and I know I was scaring a lot of people. At first, the woman seems appalled that some worker even dared assault her. She then starts screaming back at the top of her lungs, and then I still can't believe this. She starts pushing her shopping cart into my sternum as hard as she can, ramming the shopping cart into me over and over again. Now I'm not proud of this, but I vaguely remember grabbing the cart, pushing the cart back into her, and flipping it over. Some of the stuff spilled out and she fell onto the floor and she starts howling about lawsuits and how I've crippled her. And I'm shaking. Calming down at this point is not an option. That's when I feel a hand on my shoulder and I turn around to see an officer. Fortunately for me, the guy was really nice. He takes me into the manager's office and he let me sip on some chocolate milk while I told my story. I start bawling at that point because I think I'm going to jail for making a scene. He then told me that the woman is going to jail. The officer talked to the manager and told me that she had done this kind of nonsense before and harassed employees, so my complete conniption fit had actually been helpful. Well, not to me. I still shake when I think about it. I've been in some unfortunate fights before, but I never thought that I would be pulled into full-out Wally World trash territory. I'm glad that woman was arrested and justice was served, guys, because that was frickin' bonkers. And great job, lady. Now instead of being late to book club, you're not even going. This happened last Friday. I had gone into a lovely suburb in my city called Fremantle. My nan and I used to go there a lot, and now that she's passed, I like to go there and remember the good times. I had just finished some lunch and decided to go visit some of the sites that I'd been wanting to visit. It was then that I got the idea to go to the Fremantle Shipwreck Museum, as it had been many years since I last went there, and I thought I would brush up on my memories about it. So I go in, chatted with the clerk a little, and then went into the exhibit. I was looking over the various exhibits when I heard the climate-controlled doors open and a lady and her grandchild walking in. I kept looking at the skeleton I was looking at and just quietly listened to the kiddo, who was about 8 years old, marveling at the exhibit. As I listened, I heard the lady trying to explain things to the child, but I could hear that she wasn't confident in the history of the wreck. So I thought I would offer my own knowledge to help them through the exhibit. I approach them and say, "Hey, I'm a bit of a history fan. Would you like me to help explain some of this to you both?" Grandma says, "That would be wonderful, thank you." Kiddo looks pleased. He says to me, "That piece of the ship looks so cool. Is it from the actual ship?" I tell him, yes it is. That was the only piece that was able to be recovered from the reef. The kid asked me what happened to the ship. I then went into in-depth explanations. I did have to keep from chuckling at moments while talking about it. The wreck of the Batavia is singularly horrifying. It's Australia's bloodiest shipwreck. Every time I would get close to speaking about murder or awful things that happened, I could see grandmother's face tighten and frown. I could see that she actually knew enough to know what might actually come next, and was quite worried that I would just talk about what people actually did to each other, so I would carefully sidestep that particular conclusion and move on. As things started to get to the point where I couldn't avoid talking about murder, I pointed to one of the bronze cannons hauled from the reef, and asked the kiddo if he would like to know how the cannon worked. The grandmother again looked relieved, and we went to talk about cannons in maritime history. After about 45 minutes of talking, they decided they wanted to move to a different exhibit, and I wished them well, before going to look at a different exhibit as well. After I came out of the exhibit and went to leave, a clerk stopped me. She asked me if I was the one who helped the lady with the kid, and I said yes, and we talked for quite a while. That's when the clerk laughed and said that lady told her that she really enjoyed the Batavia tour guide, the guy with the ponytail, and that she made a donation because she knew the museum runs on volunteers. The clerk was thoroughly baffled at this statement and said that there were no tour guides for the Batavia exhibit. The lady looked confused for a moment and said it was great anyway before leaving. The clerk and I had a laugh about this when she told me, and we chatted some more about history. It was good fun and a great day all around. As much as I love the crazy Karen stories, guys, I really love a good story where people take the time out of their day to connect with others and help them. And it's awesome that OP provided an enjoyable experience for that little 8-year-old kid. And that makes me smile, guys. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. Go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.